Right, there you go.
Nice one, buddy. Nice one. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I guess kind of welcome back to Media Savvy. We're ready to go. Term one, new year, and we've got some new stuff coming at you. And of course, thank you for jumping on with us this morning. Here, everybody. Back to Media Savvy. We're ready to go. Term one, new year, and we've got some new stuff coming at you. And of course, thank you for jumping on with us this morning. Here, back to Media Savvy. We're you're right. Yeah, I did. I thought I'd close that. My bad, guys. My bad.
All you need to do is mute it. You can have it open. I would just probably pause it or mute it. Just so you can see the chat.
Yeah, I tend to follow along on my phone. That's why I was convinced it wasn't still open. But yeah, I must have had it on this morning for some reason. It just kicked in. So yeah, we're good to go. So yeah, a little bit rusty. It's been a couple of weeks. Yeah,
we'll get there.
Yeah. Of course we will, mate. Of course we will. And of course today we're starting off a brand new course, kind of first one of the year for the health and well-being side of things. So just kind of gradually going to like ease into things. Maybe this is the first online course you've done. Maybe you've done a couple already and you're sort of feeling a little bit more normal. Because of course a lot of people online learning, maybe's only done it for the first time last year. You know, as sort of COVID's kicked in, lockdowns kicked in, and of course caused. And led to a lot of restrictions and stuff. So yeah, maybe this is your first learning that you're doing online. So if you've ever got any questions or anything to do with that, please do just let me know. Haytham's just let me know. He's put all the information in the description for the video as well. So you'll have a little drop down arrow and you'll have any workbooks that we need. There's a link to a file that's got anything to do with sort of safeguarding and sort of learner queries, learner handbooks in there as well. So all of those resources are in a link in the description for the video. My email's there. So like I say, if you ever do need a hand with anything, if you're ever struggling and feel as though you haven't got something that you should, by all means, just drop me an email and we'll get that sorted. Haytham, I understand that you've got to bounce off this morning. I know that you've got a couple of little bits coming up yourself that's sort of starting soon. Do you just want to give us a little bit of a heads up on that?
So basically with that, I mean, it's anything sort of under the digital skills banner that we've got available. So that's basics. There's one called communication, money matters, social media, online profiles, introduction to digital imaging, and they basically start at the basics, and that is like your very, very basic digital skills, looking at using a computer, using a tablet, using a mouse, using a keyboard, and then you've got things like money matters, which is managing your money online. There's e-safety, which is spotting like online scams and how to stay safe online. Social media, looking at the different platforms and how you use them. Online profiles, we look at like employability skills, things like LinkedIn, Indeed, stuff like that, where you're building a profile online. So some of the stuff that you do on the health and wellbeing side does link into it. But equally, it basically in them courses we can cover a lot of topics, and if you did have any specific questions, we can cover them as well. There's also the introduction to digital imaging, which is a more creative course. So we use Photo-P to create different images and show you guys how to save them in the right format, and that can lead on to like the level 1 and 2 that Lisa does as well. So if anyone's interested in any of the digital stuff or has any specific queries about what might be covered, give me a shout. Probably best to just message the Facebook page, but if you want to message me directly, I'll put my email address in the chat now.
Yes. Spot on, buddy.
If I can remember how to spell my own name, that would be fabulous. So Haytham at mediasavvycic.co.uk. That's in the chat. Drop me a line. Like I say, if you're not, if you want to just drop a message to the page as well, the Facebook page.
Of course,
Twitter. The Twitter DMs are open as well, as far as I know. Instagram,
nice one.
Also maybe.
Yeah,
Facebook's the safest bet because it goes to everyone.
Definitely.
So Facebook we're all admins on the page, so we'll all get a little notification to say that you've messaged us at some point. It might be lost in the 4 million other notifications you get on Facebook because people are always inviting you to like the page and
and come and play Palm Simulator,
do a backflip and God knows what else. Watch this video and have you seen this thing about? So just go to the page and it'll get picked up eventually.
Oh, nice one, buddy. Nice one. Yeah, because
email me direct as well if you like. That's also fine.
Because of course, over the last year, I think we've maybe needed technology and those digital skills a little bit more. So if you maybe have thought to yourself, look, I'd love to be able to do this a little bit more online, or maybe you've just got so used to doing things a certain way now, you do want to just develop those digital skills a little bit more. So definitely hit up the guys, like Hatham says, on the Facebook page, or message us directly, and we'll get the information to where it needs to be. But of course, we are looking at for the course of the next 12 weeks, we're looking at understanding and overcoming health and fitness barriers, because I think that's been another big thing, again, especially over the last 18 months or so. But I mean, even beyond that, really, we all have barriers in our life that get in the way of exercise and healthy eating. It might be you're low on time, you've got the kids to look after, we've got other responsibilities. There's always something going to get in the way. So we're looking at how do we identify those barriers, how do we work around them and sort of remove them or reduce them as much as possible. So that's going to be kind of like the overarching theme that we've got for the next 12 weeks, like I say. But we've got lots of different little topics to look at as well. So like, no worries, buddy. Thanks for diving on there. First 10 minutes or so, mate. No worries, buddy. Have a good one. Cheers, man. Okay, guys. So like I say, first of all, I guess welcome to the first week, and probably your first course that you're doing with Media Savvy. So we're just going to take a few minutes to have a little bit of a look at what's on the course, but just to run through some important information first. Like I say, link to learner handbook and all the other infos in the description, along with any other workbooks and stuff like that. If you feel as though you haven't got any workbooks that you should, again, let me know and I'll send them out to you. So for each session that we do, there's going to be a survey at the end. It's not even 30 seconds to fill it in, but make sure that just follow that link, and that'll take you straight to the survey. Fill that in, because that gives us some important information that we need to just complete things on this end, pretty much, guys. Saves you a load of paperwork and a load of hassle. Appreciate that, guys. Of course, any workbooks that you do get, fill them in, obviously, as we go. If you want to send it over to me when the workbook's done, by all means do. If you want to send anything over for me to check, you can do that as well. If you'd rather hold on to all of them until the course is done and say, there you go, Rob, here's all of the workbooks together. Cool. Happy days. So sort of like Hatham was just kind of mentioning, being online really is an amazing opportunity to learn and stay connected, especially during a pandemic like we've been in, and through lockdown and through the restrictions and stuff that we've had, but we're spending more time online, of course, brings more risks. So just make sure that you're using sort of trusted sources, following trusted links, just like you've done to access this stream. You've had an email from me at Media Savvy, and you've followed this link. Just be a little bit wary about what you're clicking there if you're spending more time online than normal, for sure. Also, I guess the people around you as well, try and keep an eye out for any sort of sudden drastic changes or withdrawals sort of in people that you know, especially those who might be a little bit more isolated and vulnerable. And please come forward if you've got any sort of concerns or anything regarding that, whether it's to me, whether it's to one of the other guys. Like I say, if you do notice any changes in behaviour in somebody else, or if there's just something that you're not so sure about yourself, like I say, we're spending a little bit more time online, and the people out there that want to sort of take advantage of that, are aware of that. People are online more than normal at the minute. Right, guys, so with that sort of out the way, and I mean, like I say, we can always come back to any of that later on if you need to, if you've got any questions. We're going to look at the skeleton this morning. It's a good little place to jump in, because, of course, without our skeleton, our bodies wouldn't look how they do, they wouldn't move how they do, and understanding how the body moves and how the body works is really a big part in understanding your own fitness and managing your own fitness. Thinking, okay, like, it might lead into things, realizing, okay, that makes a little bit more sense why my knees are hurting when I'm doing a squat, or something like that. Maybe one of those obstacles or one of those sort of barriers that you've got to fitness is injury and pain. And like I say, understanding how the body works will just help us manage that and maybe overcome that a little bit better as well. Okay, guys, cool. So I am following along in the chat. If you want to, and you're watching along live, then by all means do just sort of chime in, drop something in the chat if you need to or want to. And of course, like I've mentioned in the email when I've sent out the link for this morning's session, it's totally fine if you're just going to watch this later on in the week in your own time. You know, that link will still work. And again, just drop me an email if there's something that you're not sure about, just because, of course, we're not there live to sort of help you out. Okay, guys, cool. So, like I say, week 1, we've got 12 sessions to do. So let's get right to it then, because, like I say, we're diving in, looking at the skeleton and its functions this morning. So, like I say, we've got the skeleton and its functions today, and we've got the heart and other muscles, because, of course, also big parts of how the body works and stuff that we need to look after and take care of and keep healthy. We've got the benefits of healthy eating. You know, why do we eat healthily, or why should we eat healthily? And of course, how to read food labels as well, because that's a big one in being able to go into the shops, pick something up, and actually know what it is you're putting in the basket, potentially bringing home, and probably putting into your body as well. You know. Then we're going to be looking at different components of fitness. So we're looking at the difference between muscular strength, cardiovascular endurance, you know, lifting a lot of weight or being able to run for a long distance for a long time. What's the difference? What other components of fitness are there? Because I think when you say the word fitness, it means something different to everybody. You know, you could look at somebody running like doing a triathlon, you know, swimming, cycling, running, and think, wow, they're really fit. But then you might also see Mr. Olympia up on stage at a bodybuilding show in his sort of Speedos, and he's all tanned up and he's sort of in his peak condition. And you'd probably look at him and say, well, he's fit as well. But those are 2 different types of fitness, because there's 2 different body types, the 2 different types of training, 2 different types of eating. So what is important to one person might not be to somebody else. Like, you might want to get really, really strong. That's great. I would like to get a little bit more flexible, you know, and there's, like I say, there's different ways of training. So yeah, we'll have a little bit of a look at that, distinguish them, and of course, how to test them, because if we can't test them, we don't know whether we're improving or not, you know. And then we'll be looking at different heart rate zones and how measuring and working in different heart rate zones has different effects on the body. Then, like I say, we'll really start diving into those barriers to exercise, looking at those. How do we work around them? How might we be able to remove them or sort of deal with them? Or how can we even just change your exercise schedule around to account for them, you know, to accommodate them? There's some things you can't move or eliminate, you know. Okay, then, guys, we're going to be looking at, you guys are going to pick a health and fitness topic, anything that's important to you, anything that you're passionate about. And we're going to do a little presentation poster on them. So it'll just be like a little poster. But the beauty of it is, of course, working online, you can do it digital as well if you'd rather do it on PowerPoint or whatever it might be. And then all we'll do, rather than in a classroom, standing up at the front of the class and delivering that presentation to everybody, what you'll do, you'll just deliver that presentation to me through a one-on-one Zoom call. And then, like I say, it's just us. It'll be just us. And then we can just have a little bit of feedback. And like I say, I'm interested to hear what, in terms of health and fitness, really, really interests you. You know, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get there, but we've had them done on sort of different disabilities, different health conditions. We've had them done about different sports, meal prep, anything to do with food and good eating, you know. So yeah, no need to worry about what you're going to choose just yet, but a little bit of something to think about for down the line. Okay, guys, then we are going to be looking at different fitness activities and facilities that are local to you, because of course we all live different places. What is my local gym or my local swimming baths or my local walking group might be totally different to what's available in your area as well. So we'll be looking into how we find what's nearby, what is actually nearby, and what information we need to think about as well, such as cost, maybe what equipment you need, all of that sort of thing as well. Which leads nicely into the last week or the next week, of how to actually do your health and your fitness and exercise safely. Because, of course, if we are training, if we're exercising, we want to be able to be consistent with that. And picking up injuries and hurting yourself is a surefire way for you to end up, you know, needing to take a little bit of time off from it is whatever that you do. So, and that's best case scenario, you know. So, yeah, just how to make sure we're doing our fitness and our exercise as safely as possible. And then, of course, a little bit of improving our own fitness, reflecting on what do we think we're good at, what do we feel might be a little bit of our own weakness, or a weakness within ourselves, and how do we tweak them and change them just a little bit, start to improve them. So lots to look forward to over the next 12 weeks, guys. And remember, any session, even if you do watch live, you can come back and revisit anyway, so you can come back to anything. You can sort of go through the slides if you want, or you can watch the full video and just sort of revisit all of these different topics as well. But right, guys, to start us off, like I say, we're diving in and looking at the skeleton. So the skeleton has actually got 4 different functions. Yeah, so it's got four main functions that the skeleton does in the body. And those are movement, support and shape, protection, and blood production as well, which is a little bit of a curveball there. So yeah, so thinking about movement, so the skeleton allows your body to move into different positions, different directions. For example, running forwards, running backward, putting your arms up above your head, even chewing, comes through your jaw moving. And of course, we need to eat to survive, sort of thing. So yeah, movement is a really, really important part of the skeleton. If we just had one bone instead of loads and loads and loads of little bones that move, if we were just one solid bone, we wouldn't be able to move at all. We'd be like we'd be like one of them plastic toys that just like stuck in one position. That's what we'd be like. And then we've got support and shape. So the skeleton actually gives our body the shape that we recognize and the shape that we sort of associate with humans. And of course, it stops us collapsing. You think if we were to just remove all of your bones, you would just like crumble into a puddle pretty much. There'd be nothing to keep you upright. Gravity would take its toll, and yeah, we would sort of just collapse, really. If you ever seen that bit in Harry Potter where he loses the bones in his forearm, it'd be exactly like that. We need our skeleton. It doesn't just give us movement, it gives us support and shape as well through those movements. Then we've got protection. So the skeleton actually protects a lot of internal organs as well, such as the heart and lungs, the brain. It just protects them from getting injured or damaged, really. Then we've got blood production. So the skeleton actually helps blood production by producing red and white blood cells as well as platelets. And platelets is pretty much, they help blood congeal and help stop bleeding. So yeah, our bones are actually doing extra jobs than we even realize. It's actually producing these blood cells that are doing all kinds of different jobs around the body that we'll actually look at in another session as well, what these blood cells are doing, and primarily how the heart works to get them around the body. But yeah, in our long bones, so you're thinking sort of like the big ones, so between that big bone in your upper thigh, between your knee and your hip, the biggest bone in the body, the femur, as we'll find out shortly, it's the biggest bone in the body. And, meant to be essentially as dense as concrete, really, really hard to break, really, really painful if you do. But it's those long bones that actually that actually produce those blood cells as well. So you're thinking sort of like this one in your upper arm, this one in your sort of upper leg, and the bones that you would see that are kind of, those typical looking, almost cartoonish sort of bones. It's just a long bone with sort of like the 2 bumps at either end. Of course, your ribs don't look like that, your skull doesn't look like that. But a lot of the bones that do look like that are actually producing these blood cells in the center and in the bone marrow as well. So yeah, we're quite an interesting one. Yeah, so we've got 4 main functions for the skeleton, and it's doing a lot more than we probably realize on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So thinking about especially support and shape and stuff like that as well. If you think about how much support your bones and your skeleton is actually giving you, it's sort of it. To me, it sort of indicates how important it is to work with the muscular system as well, and if you're doing a little bit of training and a little bit of exercise, you're strengthening your muscular system. So it actually takes some of the strain off your bones and helps reduce some of that wear and tear. And of course, thinking about your posture, being in good posture, and of course, letting your bones support you the way that they're designed to, rather than sort of rounded shoulders, heads drooped down, looking at your phone all day. Again, we end up getting wear and tear and pains and niggles and stuff like that down the line. So of course, that is why stretching is important, moving is important, getting active is important, which links in quite nicely to at the end of each session. I don't know whether Mel mentioned when she told you a little bit about the course, but at the end of each session, we are going to have a little bit of a 20 minute and a half an hour fitness video, just to get us all moving, It's something you can just do at home. You don't really need any kit. I've sort of filmed them and put them together at home. So, like I say, as long as you've got a little bit of space or just a little bit of a heads up, so at the end of each session, you can clear yourself a little bit of space. And of course, you can come back to those fitness videos whenever you want as well. If you wanted to come back to them once or twice a week, maybe get to the weekend and pop one on, go for it. Yeah. So I've actually attached a stretching video for this morning because I'm well aware, a lot of us have sat at home for the last 18 months or the best part of 18 months. We might not have moved as much as normal. We might not have been as active as normal. So just a nice chance to have a nice little stretch, wake those muscles up again a little bit, get moving, let your body know that it's kind of getting going again. And then we'll gradually ease into these things as we go. But there's always an alternative exercise. If you get there and you think, oh, me back doesn't like that one, my knee's not so happy about doing that, I always try and include an alternative. So there's something in there for everybody. And if you're kind of chomping at the bit to do something fitness-wise, exercise-wise, you're looking to train in the house, by all means, check out the channel because the Media Savvy YouTube channel, because they're all in a playlist up on there as well. So yeah, plenty ways to get some exercise in. But yeah, nice little stretching video at the end of the day session that you can sort of watch in your own time. And like I say, just get moving and get loosened up a little bit because, like I say, that each day might have bled into each other, through lockdown and stuff like that. And there's a little bit of Groundhog Day. And, before you know it, it's been however long since you've been exercising and being active and stuff like that, So, yeah, now's a good chance. It's as good a time as any to get moving again, get a little bit more active. And like I say, give that skeleton a little bit of support as well by strengthening those muscles. All right, guys, a little bit of an activity or a little bit of a warm up to get the old brains working. So we've got a crossword to do. So if you're a little bit like me and you're a little bit more old school and you prefer to write stuff down, pen and paper, by all means, grab a pen and a bit of paper and just sort of, rather than copy the boxes across, just sort of write the words, let them cross into each other and stuff like that. And sometimes it's helpful, to be able to say, okay, the second letter of this one's A. That sort of might give me a bit more of an idea what the answers might be. But all we're going to do, guys, just to see where we are sort of going into today's session, let's just have a work through and see which of these or how many of these we can actually get. So we'll just have we'll have a couple of minutes. And then what we'll do, I'll start working through the answers. And sort of going into each sort of bone a little bit more, and then we can go from we'll sort of go from there. Yeah, because if you wanted a little bit longer, then you could always like I say, you can always just pause it here. Yeah, so if you wanted to pause it here, get as many answers as you can, or get all of them. If you'd rather try and get them all before you move on, excellent. Just pause it here and get caught up with us. Oh, really good point, Hatham, as well. Yeah, remember to subscribe to the channel as well, so you'll see when we go live as well. That was how I actually ended up running the same stream in the video in the background this morning. I had it open, ready to go. I was that excited, ready to jump in. But yeah, definitely get yourself subscribed, and like I say, you'll see when we go live, and you'll be able to jump into be it a course that you're enrolled on, or maybe it's one that you're not, and you maybe want to dive in and sort of see what's going on and go from there as well, guys. So yeah, we'll just spend 5 minutes or so, see how many of these we can get. So running through the clues, so we've got so we're looking for kind of the proper scientific name for these bones. So we've got the hips, name of the skull, proper name for the kneecap, what protects your heart and lungs. Might have mentioned that one already in the intro. The bone in your forearm above the thumb, the long bone at the top of the arm. So what's this one called? The larger lower leg bone at the front, so the shin bone. Yeah, what do we call that? Shin bone. Then for the down clues, we've got the collarbone, bony one that sticks across there. We've got the smaller lower leg bone, which is the one at the back that actually sits behind your shin. We've got the shoulder blade, proper name for the shoulder blade. The toes and fingers, and the long bone at the top of the leg. Again, I think we might have mentioned this one already. We've got the breastbone or the breastplate. And then we've got the bone in the forearm above the little finger, yeah, because of course in the forearm and in the lower leg, we've got two smaller bones rather than one big bone, yeah. So we'll have a little bit of look at we'll have a little look at those in a second, and we'll start working our way through. See, if you can do this just looking at the screen, then great. I don't recommend trying a permanent marker on the screen though. Definitely not. Okay, guys. So, like I say, if you do want a little bit more time and you do want to, like I say, work through them yourself, by all means, pause it there. Maybe you'll want to come back and try this again at the end of the session and see sort of how much we've actually sort of picked up throughout the day and through the morning. Okay, guys. So we'll just start from the top then. And again, like I say, it's probably worth making a mental note of which of these names you've heard before, if you've ever heard any of them before, and of course, which ones are totally brand new to you as well. Okay, guys, so 4 across, we've got the hips. So, of course, kind of sitting at the base of your spine, at the top of your legs, we've got our hips. And the proper name for the hip bones is the pelvis. Yeah. So 4 across would be pelvis. Yeah. So that's probably one of the more common ones that you might have heard before. But again, do let me know, because it's always interesting. Okay, guys. So 5 across, the name of the skull. We've got the cranium. Yeah. So cranium, just another name for the skull, pretty much. Interesting one while we are on the topic of the skull. So we've got, our adults have 206 bones in the body. Yeah. When we're babies, or babies in general, have more than that, and as they get older, some of them actually fuse together. And the skull's one of the bones where you can actually see where that fusion's actually happened. If you've ever seen a skull, I'm definitely not tech savvy enough to pull up a picture of a skull and show you a skull. But if you were to Google a skull, you might actually see the like the fuse lines. Because it's like I say, the cranium is separate plates that gradually sort of solidify and sort of fuse together. Which is why with a baby you need to be careful about where you touch them on the head and like the soft spot and stuff like that, because the skull hasn't finished fully forming yet. So yeah, a bit of an interesting one there, guys. You know, and we're born with a lot more bones than 206, and as we get older, some of them actually fuse together, and 206 is the number that we end on. All being well, touch wood. Okay, guys, yeah. So yeah, that was the skull, or the cranium. Yeah. Okay, guys. So the kneecap. The kneecap. We've got 8 across is actually the patella. So Patella. Yeah, patella. Okay, guys, so your patella is actually doing, if we think about those 4 functions of the skeleton that we sort of talked about earlier on in the session, the kneecap, you might be tempted to sort of think that the kneecap is responsible for allowing movement. Yeah. Because, of course, you can bend your knee. It helps us move. When really the kneecap is there for protection. It's the 2 bones. It's your shin bone and your upper leg bone coming together and hinging at the knee being here in the middle, that gives us that movement. We can do that without the kneecap. The kneecap is there to protect it. So as you open up the knee joint, rather than having all the nerves and blood vessels and veins and stuff exposed, the kneecap gives you a lot of protection. So if you're actually kneeling, you know, if you were to imagine how painful kneeling would be if you got down onto the floor and like took the carpet into the skirting board or something like that, and you just knelt straight onto your nerves. You know, that would be absolute agony. You'd have pain shooting down your legs, up your body. So yeah, the kneecaps actually then gives us a lot of protection, whereas the shin bone and the upper leg bone gives us the movement because of the way that they fit together and the way that they meet and join together. Okay, guys, so number 8 was patella, and number 9 protects your heart and lungs. So 9 across, we've got, so our heart and lungs are in our chest, getting protected by our ribs. Yeah. So there's no coincidence in the fact that some of our most vital organs, your heart and lungs, are sitting in one of the most well protected parts of the body, you know, in the chest, where not only have you got ribs surrounding it, sort of protecting them at the back, but you've got ribs all the way around, you know, nice and strong, nice and solid. If you're going to crack a rib, it tends to be one of the lower ones, and we'll get a little bit of a look why in just a minute as well. But yeah, so our ribs are there pretty much to it gives us a little bit of shape and a little bit of support, but mainly the ribs are there to protect our heart and our lungs. Yeah. Okay, guys, so protects heart and lungs. So number 11, bone in the forearm above the thumb. Because like I say, we've got two little bones, in the upper arm. So yeah, we've got sort of one running up here, one running up there. So there's one comes down from the pinky, there's one comes down from the thumb, yeah? So same again, we'll get a look at how I remember these when we look at the diagram in just a second. But the bone in the forearm above the thumb is the radius. Yeah, so we've got the radius and the ulna in the upper arm, and the one coming from the thumb is the radius. Yeah. Okay, guys, cool. The long bone at the top of the arm, 12 across, is of course the humerus. If you've ever banged it, maybe you've heard it called the funny bone. It's not so funny when you do bang it on the door frame or on the desk or something like that. And that is where it comes from. It is called the humerus, although it is not when you smash it off something. So yeah, the long bone at the top of the arm is a humerus, and of course we sort of mentioned earlier on that's one of those long bones. So there's a little bit of blood cell production going on in there as well, as much as giving us a little bit of movement, especially in our limbs. Okay, guys, cool. So, where will we? Okay, so the larger lower leg bone, so the one at the front, the shin bone, is the tibia. Yeah, maybe it's one that you've come across before. We've got the tibia and the fibula in the leg, and tibia is the one at the front that would be probably thought of as the shin bone. Yeah. If you've ever played football and put your shin pads on, that's the one that's getting the most protection from those pads, yeah. So yeah, that's the tibia, the larger lower leg bone, and it sits at the front of the leg. Okay, guys, onto the other questions then, onto the down clues. So we've got the collarbone, yeah, bony one runs across there. It is the clavicle. Yeah, so the clavicle or the collarbone is it gives us a little bit of our shape and a little bit of support. Of course, it comes out and leads into our shoulders. And in terms of movement, it allows our shoulders to come forward and backwards. Yeah, we can round your shoulders forwards and you can pull them backwards and really push your chest out as well. Bear with me 2 seconds, guys. I've just got the low battery. This is turned on at the wall. There we go. So can't be cutting out midstream. We can't have that. You guys would never know the rest of the clues. Okay, guys. So we've got the collarbone, giving us a lot of movement, and a little bit of shape, and then just a little bit of support as well. 2 down. So we've got the smaller lower leg bone. So we said we have the tibia at the front of the lower leg. So we're talking from the knee down to the ankle. Yeah, we've got the shin, and then sitting just sort of behind the shin towards the back of the leg, we've got the fibula. So maybe one you've come across before, maybe not. Again, it'd be quite interesting to know which of these words actually get through into sort of everyday language, you know, because like I say, when you get so familiar with these terms, it's really easy to sort of lose track of what's sort of common knowledge and stuff like that as well. So yeah, by all means, guys, do let me know which of these you've come across before, because I really do think it's interesting. Okay, guys, number 3 down, we've got the shoulder blade. Yeah, we've got the shoulder blade, probably one that you've heard of before, but of course it has its own name, and that is the scapula. Yeah, we've got the scapula that sits on your back, and again gives us a lot of movement in terms of letting your shoulders come back, pushing your chest out, and letting them round forward as well. Yeah, a lot of it comes one way with the clavicle, goes the other way with the shoulder blades. Of course, with the help of muscles as well. Right, guys. So toes and fingers. So we're talking obviously from there outwards rather than the palm of your hand or the sort of like the sole of your foot. Just the toes and fingers are made up of little bones, just little bones, called phalanges. Yeah. So if you like your friends, and you'll know what I'm talking about by now. You know, there's a problem with the left phalange. Let's get off the plane. It's not a part of an aeroplane. It's actually part of your anatomy. It's your fingers and your toes, just those little bones that make each little individual part of your fingers and toes, so you can actually sort of bend them and give them a lot more movement and give you a lot more dexterity. So that is phalanges. So that is PHALANGES. Yeah, phalanges. So yeah, just in case you are writing these down and actually filling in this crossword as we're going through. Okay, guys. So one that I did give away earlier on, the long bone at the top of the leg. So the big one between your hip and your kneecap is the femur. Yeah, biggest bone in the body. Like I say, meant to be as dense as concrete, pretty much. Then we've got 10 down. The breastbone or the breastplate, if you've ever heard it called that. The proper name for it is the sternum. Again, I don't know whether you've come across that one before. I know when I used to watch the pro wrestling growing up, you know, it always seemed to be always hitting right in the sternum. Yeah, it was just kind of one of those words that sort of was quite commonly used. But again, if you've never come across it before, the breastplate. So essentially, the bit that your ribs come round and connect onto, yeah, the front, that is your breastplate, or that's your sternum. Yeah. Okay, guys, cool. Where are we? Okay, so we've got one more to do. So we've got the bone in the forearm above the little finger. So remember we said from the thumb coming down we have the radius. On the other side is the ulna. Yeah, so ULNA. 4 letters. And then that's the last one, done and dusted, guys. So yeah, let me know how you got on. Or by all means, come back and try this sort of at the end of the session when we've been over things a little bit more. Yeah. Cool. Right, guys. Right. So we might as well have a little bit of a look at the different bones in the body then, and just how they sort of fit together. And we can talk about as well how some of them are made up of collections of smaller bones as well, thinking mainly the spine. There's 4 or 5 different sections of the spine. So we'll have a little bit of a dive into that as well. So having done that crossword, we should have a little bit more of an idea how to fill in this diagram and start to label it a little bit, yeah. So what we've actually got, I'm just trying to think, 1, 2. Most of those we've already covered. Yeah, most of those we've just been over. So, like I say, get what we can down, and then we'll see what's sort of left over. Fill in the blanks. See which of these names or words we're really sort of finding a little bit harder to remember, because of course with stuff like this there's always going to be some that for whatever reason really sort of resonates and really sticks and you find quite easy to remember. You know, maybe it's just the words that you have come across before, and then some of them will just be a little bit more elusive for a little bit. You know, you'll have to keep coming back, and you might need to revise this sort of topic another once or twice before it sort of settles in and makes itself at home in your memory. So yeah, we've got okay, number 1, of course, would be the cranium, as we've just been through. Yeah. Number 2, we've got would be could be vertebrae. Yeah. Or yeah, it would be vertebrae in the neck, because of course your spine is made up of a lot of different vertebrae that are sort of connected together with cartilage. Yeah, so if you ever heard of anybody saying they've slipped a disc or whatever, that's exactly what that is. A little bit of cartilage from between your vertebrae sort of slipping out, and it's going to end up causing a lot of pain potentially. Number 3, we've got the, I'm just trying to see, number 3, we've got the clavicle, yeah, so, or the collarbone. So remember, clavicle is the collarbone, and it sort of runs from the center of your chest out onto your shoulders, yeah. Number 4, we've got the long bone in the upper arm, which was the humerus, yeah. And again, if you'd rather, like I say, take a little bit of time and label this yourself, by all means, pause it there, and you can just catch up with us afterwards, yeah. Okay, so number 4 was the humerus in the upper arm. Not so humorous if you hit it on something. Number 5 is pointing through to the other side of the body. Yeah, so it's pointing to the shoulder blade, which we can see sort of sticking through. Because of course, if we didn't have any muscle or any organs, you'd be able to see your shoulder blade from the front as well. So number 5 is our shoulder blades, or if you remember rightly, scapula. Yeah, that's our scapula. Okay, number 6 we've just been over was the sternum, yeah, that breastplate or that breastbone right in the middle, smack bang in the center. And we can see now, like I was saying on that last slide, some of the ribs come round and connect to the breastplate. They all attach, or they all start on the spine, yeah, they're all anchored to the spine, but these top ones come round and latch onto the sternum. The lower ones don't, yeah. The lower ones don't. So if we're going to crack a rib, or for whatever reason, you know, if you're maybe coughing or you've had like a bit of impact, if you're going to injure a rib, it tends to be one of the lower ones, because they're not as stabilized, because they're not attached at the front and the back. They're just attached at the back. So these are what we call floating ribs. Yeah. So like I say, these are the ones that would be much more likely to injure, much more likely to crack or to hurt. Funny one with ribs as well. What it's easy to forget, because we always see ribs on a skeleton like this. It's easy to forget that we actually have muscles in between each individual rib that expand and stretch as we breathe and our chest rises, and they contract, and that your ribs shrink again as your lungs shrink. Give it a try. Give it a try as you're watching along. Just give it a deep breath. Put your hand on your chest, and you'll feel your ribs expand, and then as you breathe out, you'll feel them contract again and start to shrink. And that is where we get the rising and falling of your chest from as you're breathing. So yeah, we actually have muscles in between each individual ribs. They're not just bones that are there and sort of there's not much else going on with them. We've got muscles attached to them, which again you can sprain by coughing. So you maybe thought that you've cracked a rib when really you've just sprained one of these muscles in between your ribs, you know. Okay, guys, cool. So yeah, that was number 6, the breastplate, the sternum, and like I say, it's an anchor point at the front for a lot of ribs. But if you notice, that sits right over the top of where your heart, right, mainly your heart, but where your lungs would be as well. Your heart is actually more dead center in your chest than it is over to the left, which is why and how it ends up sitting so perfectly behind that breastplate. It's kind of, if you've ever seen the film Pulp Fiction, or if you've ever seen anything where they've done an adrenaline injection into the heart or something like that, even as sort of like a first aid sort of thing, they have to go through this breastplate, which is why it needs to be done with so much force. Like I say, it is there to protect the heart. And yeah, it does its job. It does its job, you know. Okay, so number 6, number 7, we've got the ribs themselves, like I just mentioned. Some of them connected all the way around, some of them just start at the back and don't connect at the front. Although even those lower ones are still giving a little protection, especially from the side and from the back, to stuff like your liver and your kidneys and stuff like that. So a little bit of protection there still. Number 8, we've got like the lower part of the spine. Yeah, so the spine's actually made up of, like we say, different vertebrae. Yeah, so you've got lots and lots of little bones stacked up on top of each other, which makes up the spinal column. So what we've actually got is different sections of the spine as well that kind of do different jobs. They're called, they've obviously got individual names. So if you've ever come back from a like a scan or an X-ray or something, you know, and you've sort of read through the notes that kind of don't make much sense because they're made for doctors and stuff like that, and for your other consultant to read. Maybe you've seen something about, you know, a little bit of tension on vertebrae T2. You know, that just means that it's the second vertebrae from the thoracic section of the spine. So we've got the cervical, or what we call the cervical section of the spine at the top, and that is the first 7 vertebrae. Yeah, so from the base of the skull, the first 7 vertebrae, or the first 7 individual bits of your spine, are called the cervical spine. Yeah, you get a little bit of flexion on the head, backwards and forwards, side to side, but that part of the spine's main job is to allow your head to pivot side to side. Yeah. So, of course, from a survival point of view, evolutionary, when we were cavemen, for example, we weren't top of the food chain like we are now necessarily. And we needed to have our heads on a swivel a lot more, you know, to check our surroundings, keep an eye out for predators. So, yeah, the upper part of the spine, those top 7 are really to do with allowing your head to pivot side to side and giving you that range of motion there. Then we've got what we call the thoracic vertebrae. Yeah, so that's the next 12 down. So we've got 7, then we've got 12. Yeah, and this is where pretty much all of your ribs join onto. Yeah, so not as much movement in that part of your spine, you'll notice, especially compared to your lower back and sort of like the upper ones in your neck. They're not designed to move as much. They're designed to give you a lot of support and a lot of shape. Not to say that they can't move and don't move and that you can't throw one of those discs out. You definitely can, but that thoracic part of the spine is more to do with sort of getting your nerves to where they need to be, protecting your nerves along the way from impact. Because of course, if your nerves run down the outside of your body, every time you hit your back, you'd be in agony. So again, protecting the nervous system. And then we've got the lumbar spine, which is the next 5 down after those 12. So those next 5 down, the lumbar spine. If you've ever heard of a lumbar puncture, that's where the name comes from, because it's done in the lumbar spine or in the lumbar section of the spine, and that's actually the area with the most movement. It gives us more movement than the area that sort of helps us move our neck. You know, you think leaning side to side, you can keep your bum down, you can get quite a long way over to each side without your bum starting to lift. And it just means that you're getting a lot of range of motion there as well. So that is why we actually get a lot of back pain is in the lower back, because it's responsible for so much more movement. And if we're not thinking about the way that we move and being mindful of how we're moving, it's really easy to sort of use it in a way it's not intended to be used, you know, or just tweak a muscle or something like that as well. So yeah, so it's another reason why we've got to think about our posture and the way that we're exercising specifically, which, like I say, is something we can get onto in a little bit down the line, and we can talk about, you know, making sure that we're exercising safely. But your lower back is so important because it gives us the most movement, so it's more prone to picking up injuries, and of course it can be more impactful if we hurt it, because it then removes a lot of movement that we might actually need sort of day to day. So the way that I remember those 3 little breakups of the spine, I think of it as, so if you remember, we had the cervical spine had 7, the thoracic spine had 12, the lumbar spine had 5. I just think of meal times: breakfast at 7, dinner at 12, tea at 5. Yeah, 7, 12, 5. Nice and easy, guys. So that's the way that we remember that one. And then we've actually got lower down and actually sitting into the middle of sort of like the hip bones. You can see we've got another 2 little sections as well, but these are actually fused together. So we've got the sacrum, yeah, and we've got the coccyx. So maybe you've heard of one of those, any of those before. Those are so they give your hip bones and your pelvis like a lot more structure and a lot more stability. And if you've ever sat down too fast and sat on like that bony bit right at the bottom of your bum, that's your coccyx, and that can be quite painful. You can bruise it, which can be agony. And yeah, that's when you might get like a little bit of a shooting pain up your back again, because they're fused together, so the impact has nowhere to go. When you hit it, it just goes up your spine and can hurt. It really can if you sit down too fast or on the wrong thing. Definitely. Right, where was that? That was the spine. Right, so yeah, that's how I remember the spine. And number 9, of course, we had, so we're into the upper arm again. Yeah, so we've got the radius and the ulna. Now, we're going to try and find a way that we remember which is which. So the way that I do it, I always think about, okay, so I've got one coming down from the little finger, one coming down from the thumb. One's got to be a radius, one's got to be the ulna. I remember, out of the two, ulna is the little word. The little word comes from the little finger. So we've got the ulna down this side, and we've got the radius connected from the thumb. Yeah, and that's never going to change no matter which way you rotate your hand. So it's always the ulna from the little finger, the smaller of the words, and we've got the radius coming down the other side as well. Yeah. Another way that you could remember it, I guess, is that your thumb gives you more articulation. You can do a circle, and of course, circle has a radius as well, so you can remember it that way. Whatever works, guys. Whatever helps the information stick. We've all got our own little ways of remembering stuff. You know, and again, if you do come up with anything helpful that helps you remember something, please let me know. You know, because it might be helpful to somebody else as well. Okay, guys. So that was 9 and 10. So we did right. Trying to figure out which way his palms are. So he looks like he stood, palms facing us. So his thumb is on the outside. So that means that number 9 would be the radius and 10 would be in the ulna because the little finger is on the inside closer to his body. Yeah. Okay, guys. So we're going to come back to 11 and 12 as well as 17 and 18 when we get there. So 13, we said, was the femur. Again, biggest bone in the body, or the biggest single bone in the body. Which connects down to the or number 15. So we've got number 14 in the middle, which is the patella. Yeah, which is the patella, which is of course the kneecap. 15 is the bone at the front, or the shin bone, which remember is the tibia. And then number 16 is that smaller little bone at the back of your lower leg, and that's the fibula. Yeah. The way that I remember that, it might seem a little bit strange, is like the smaller word. I don't know. I think of it as sort of like small, fancy, sort of delicate, and to me, fibula just sounds like sort of that sort of thing, you know, compared to tibia. Tibia, I think, sort of robust. Your shin will take a whacking before it breaks. If truth be told, a lot of leg breaks in the lower leg are the fibula, the little sort of fiddly, more delicate bone at the back, which is the fibula. Yeah. Okay, so 17 and 18 we're going to come back to, like I say, and 19 we've got the pelvis again. Yeah, so we can actually see how those lower parts of the spine really do sit into the pelvis and give that pelvis something, or those hip bones something to connect to on either side. I kind of think of the pelvis as like the central hub for the body, you know, in the sort of like anything going from head to toe passes through your pelvis, which is again part of the reason why we do get a lot of lower back pain, because it's sort of in the middle of everything. It only takes your pelvis to be slightly off tilt, and then your lower back muscles have to do the same. And if you don't even realize, days become weeks, become months, become potentially years, and you haven't sort of corrected it, and you end up with pain, you end up with niggles and probably bad posture as well. Okay, guys, so 11 and 12 and 17 and 18 I wanted to come back to because they're very, very similar, in the sense that, I mean, you can even see from the elbow down and from the knee down, we've got two bones, one slightly bigger, one slightly smaller. So our sort of lower limbs, arms and legs, are very similar, you know, which to me lends sort of evidence to the argument that we potentially did used to walk on all fours, you know, again, talking about evolution and stuff like that, you know, and they're very, very similar in terms of anatomy. And then your hands and of course your feet are very similar as well. Despite the fact that nowadays they do very, very different jobs and very different things, really. So 11 and 12, we've got, the hands, 17 and 18, we've got down in the feet. So the ones closest to the bones at the end of the limb, yeah? The ones closest to the end of the limb. those are called, in the hands, they're called carpals. In the feet, they're called tarsals. Yeah. So that's right at the base of the wrist here. Yeah, as they meet, and right in exactly the same place on your foot, but of course where your ankle is instead of sort of where your ankle starts to meet your foot, pretty much. So we've got carpals in the hands, tarsals in the feet. The way that I remember that is T for toes. Tarsals go in the feet. Maybe, maybe especially if you're a football fan or probably other sports as well, you've heard about athletes actually breaking a tarsal or a metatarsal. I know Wayne Rooney famously did before one either World Cup or Euros. I can't remember which it was. I think David Beckham did his at one point. I know Michael Owen did his. Really common injuries with footballers, actually. Not like a weekly thing, but comes up more often than you would expect. And it can write a season off, given that it's just like one little bone, or it used to. I don't know whether recovery is a little bit better, and of course, sports science is always improving. But yeah, metatarsal break can be quite nasty. So of course, like I say, we've got carpals in your hand. Maybe you've heard of carpal tunnel syndrome, which is where you're getting sort of pain from doing the same thing day after day, potentially for years. A lot of people who work with power tools get it, and people who are typing all day, sat at the desk, just hands doing the same thing all day, every day. Hairdressers that are always got like one arm up for like with a comb and another one for cutting. That's an impression of me cutting hair there, guys. That's why I'm not a barber or a stylist. But yeah, we've got carpals in our hands, which is where the name carpal tunnel syndrome comes from, and we've got tarsals in our feet. As we move down the hand or foot and get closer towards your toes and fingers, or the phalanges, if we remember right, as we get closer towards your phalanges, we've got, of course, so our carpals are here, our phalanges are here. Everything in between is metacarpals. Yeah, so as they start to branch off into their own little fingers or toes or whatever it is, those are your metacarpals. Yeah, so again, if you remember anyone in particular breaking a metatarsal or someone injuring one, that was not so close up towards the ankle. That's a little bit lower down on the foot. Yeah, so we've got in here, we've got the tarsals, and then the metatarsals are down on the toes, and then remember the individual toes and fingers are phalanges. Yeah, so we've actually got all of those done on this next slide. So I'll just leave this up for a minute. So if you are coming back and you do want to revise this or just revisit it, then it's already there on the screen in front of you. Yeah. So remember, we've got the cranium, we've got the cervical vertebrae, number 2, clavicle, humerus, scapula is the shoulder blade. Remember, it's sticking through from the other side. Sternum is in the middle, connecting the ribs, which is number 7. Number 8, the spinal column. Or if you want it to be more specific, you could say the lumbar section of the spine. Number 9, radius. Number 10 was ulna. 11 and 12 are carpals and metacarpals. 13 was femur. 14 was patella. 15 was the tibia, the shin bone, fibula at the back. Tarsals in your foot. Metatarsals as we get further down towards the toes. And 19, of course, like we said, was the pelvis there as well. Cool, right, guys. Like I say, I'll just leave that up for a second, and then it'll be nice and easy for you to come back and just check any of these if you feel as though you want to or need to. Okay, guys. So just before we do move on, the skeleton itself can, of course, be damaged, be injured, and also suffer from be prone to a little bit of wear and tear. Of course, as we get older, our bones have supported us for the whole time we've been alive, really, in one way, shape or form. We do get wear and tear. So that is another reason why we train and exercise well and properly to make sure that our bones and our muscles last and function the way they should for as long as possible. Really, the bones do shrink a bit with age as you get older, which is why, I feel as though, especially someone elderly that or someone who's a little bit older might seem to be shrinking or getting a little bit smaller. And bone density is a strange one. It comes from, of course, weight bearing and stuff like that. It's something that has caused a bit of a problem or did back in the day, caused a bit of a problem with NASA and astronauts going up into space for a prolonged amount of time, because without gravity putting some resistance and putting some strain and tension onto your bones and onto your skeletal system, it would become quite brittle, and then you would get back to Earth where the gravity is of course normal and present, and again you could really hurt yourself. Bones might actually after a while start to sort of crumble and get quite sort of brittle, and potentially lead to conditions like osteoporosis and stuff like that. You know, if you've ever come across that before, osteoporosis is pretty much just weak bones, you know, or brittle bones. I actually used to train a lady who had like early onset osteoporosis, and through doing a little bit of resistance training, you know, being on her feet, doing some weights, doing a little bit of moving around, and doing some exercise that wasn't just cardio all the time, you know, she actually started to build up her bone density again a little bit. You know, being on your feet develops it. So again, it's probably something that we're gonna see some effects of post-COVID and post-lockdown. You know, that gets a lot of us have been sat around a lot more. Maybe it's not getting that effect on our skeleton, you know. So yeah, it's another reason why we could all do with a little bit of resistance training, you know, a little bit of weight training, maybe resistance bands, whatever it might be, on the cables, on the machines. But you know, yeah, it's kind of one of those. I've heard women say over the years, look, I don't want to do weights because I don't want to get like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like, it doesn't happen by accident, you know. It's not just going to happen overnight. And generally speaking, women in particular don't have the hormones to build that much muscle and develop that sort of frame. You know, most of the women that look like that on purpose, and it's taken a lot of dedication and a lot of training. Resistance training is only going to do your muscular system the world of good, your skeletal system the world of good, and probably your cardio and your lungs as well. Because like I say, if you're lifting your weights in a specific way, or not giving yourself too much rest, you're still going to get that out of breath feeling. You're still going to burn calories, and you can potentially actually burn more calories from doing weights than you do from cardio as well. So something to think about there, guys. If you maybe always thought, you know, weights aren't for me, resistance training isn't for me, I'd rather shy away from it and try something else, you know. Again, sports and activities and stuff will give you the same effect. We've just got to be moving, guys. We've got to exercise, we've got to train, we've got to keep fit, and we've got to look after our bones as well as, you know, the muscles that look good in the mirror. You know. Okay, guys, so that'll about do us for the skeleton this morning, because that can be quite a lot to take in, certainly a lot to remember. And like I say, by all means, do come back and revise this if you feel like you need to. If you want to take things that little bit further, you can maybe go through each of these bones and think about, you know, what job in terms of movement, protection, shape and support, or blood cell production, which of those jobs, it could be a mix of those jobs, is each of these bones doing. Yeah, you know, really test that knowledge. Okay, guys, so just because they're so sort of interlinked, the skeleton and the muscular system and our organs and stuff like that, we're just going to spend the next 10 minutes or so just looking at the different organs in the body as well, and go over just some fun, interesting facts, really. So a lot of organs will actually repair themselves, even if it is sort of like a liver that's been damaged by alcohol consumption and stuff like that. You know, if you sort your diet out and, you know, you're thinking a little bit healthier and you're not putting in what was making the problem in the first place, yeah, a lot of our organs can actually repair themselves. You know, the heart, like I say, the stomach, the liver, can, like I say, start to repair themselves. Okay, guys. So what have we got? We'll just work our way through. We'll start from the left-hand side, the esophagus. Yeah. So we've got the esophagus, and we can say that is actually the tube that takes the food from your mouth down into your stomach. Yeah. Process that only takes 7 seconds actually. So within 7 seconds of swallowing, the food's in your stomach and getting worked on. Yeah, starting to get digested and all of that. We'll stay on the left-hand side for now. Of course, we've got our lungs, and we can even say our lungs sit either side of the heart. The heart sits, like I mentioned earlier, dead center behind the sternum, getting a lot of protection. But if anything, it's slightly off center to the left. And we can see that there, it's kind of tucked behind that left lung. If that person was facing us, it would be the left anyway. So your lungs, like I mentioned earlier on, they expand as we breathe in, they sort of contract and shrink as we breathe out. So they need to be able to stretch, So I don't know who's actually done this, but it's been tested how far they do stretch. And if you were to take a male's lungs, an adult male's lungs, and stretch them out as far as you can, all the blood vessels and stuff that's in there as well, it would be the size of a regulation tennis court, which is, that's a lot for something that is in essentially two balloons in your chest that inflates and deflates. So yeah, it's surprising how much we've actually got in there, behind there within our rib cage. Okay, what have we got next? We've got the liver. So the liver just produces bile, really, and helps clean your system out a little bit. Then we've got we've got the kidneys. So of course the kidneys. Actually, one kidney is actually sufficient. We have two, but only but one kidney will actually do. Which is why you might be able to donate yours to someone who needs it. Fun little fact that I actually found out from Mel once upon a time. If you have an operation to put a new kidney in because you've got a deficient one, they leave the old one in, or they tend to leave the old one in. Maybe in the hope that it'll kick in again at some point. It's been known to happen. But yeah, there are people out there walking around with 3 kidneys because they've had one donated, but the old one doesn't get taken out, it gets left in. So I mean, like, how they're squeezing even more in there that should be, I do not know. Like, I can open, like, I'll get something out of a box, try and put it back in that box, and it just will not fit anymore. So I don't understand how. Of course, massive respect for surgeons and doctors that are able to operate on such complicated systems and get everything back in there as well. Like I say, I can't even get the Christmas decorations in the box that they came out of come January. Okay, guys. So yeah, with the kidneys, they can actually leave the bad one in the hope that it's going to kick in again at some point. So that was the kidneys. The duodenum, I wouldn't worry about too much. It's almost kind of like the front porch to the intestines, pretty much. Producing some blood cells, and like I say, it's kind of the entryway to the intestines. And we've got the appendix, a little bit redundant these days. There's argument over how much we actually need it, and of course, we can survive if we get it taken out. If it's if we're appendicitis or something like that, if one bursts, it can be fatal. So yeah, for the function that it does, there's argument that it is just best to have it out if there's chance that it might rupture. Really the main job of the appendix used to be to process a lot of food and plants and stuff like that we don't eat anymore. So we don't really need it, certainly as much as we used to. But yeah, it's always on that right-hand side as well. So if you're getting pains lower down on that right-hand side, it's worth going and getting that checked out because it might be appendicitis or something going on there. Then of course at the bottom we've got the bladder. I'm pretty sure that we all know what the bladder does. It's going to hold urine until we either need to go or get a chance to go. And again, it's like a balloon. It expands, which is why it gets to a point where it's just impossible to hold it any longer. You're kind of at maximum capacity, and like they say, when you gotta go, you gotta go. Okay, coming over to the right hand side then as well. So we've got the trachea, which is the airway, that goes down to the lungs and brings the oxygen into the lungs. Yeah, so we've got the esophagus brings food down, trachea brings oxygen down to the lungs. Because of course we need that oxygen to go around the body, as we'll look at next week. Okay, so then we've got the heart. Again, we're going to get a really, really deep look into how the heart works, why it does what it does, and why it's so easy for a bad diet to start to interfere with it and cause knock-on effects as well. The heart, pretty much, it's got its own little electrical beat. It pumps blood around the body, and in turn It pumps oxygen around the body, which allows our muscles to move. Then the circulation brings it all back to the lungs. We breathe out the carbon dioxide that's been produced. We bring in more oxygen. The blood picks it up again, and away it goes around the body again, just completing that cycle. The stomach, of course, is there. It's there to digest our food, break it down into sort of a format that our body can use and start to absorb. The acid in your stomach is actually so strong it can burn straight through your own hand if you've got it on your own hand. So it's testament to how strong and robust the walls of your stomach are. But yeah, our own stomach acid could burn through our hand, which I believe is the inspiration for the blood in the xenomorph in Alien and Aliens, if you've seen any of those. Of course, their blood is acidic and demonstrated across the series how dangerous that can be. But yeah, that is where the inspiration came from. And to the best of my knowledge, it's our own stomach acid. It could burn through our hand if it got on. We've got under our stomach, we've got the spleen. So it's part of our immune system. It's part of the production and the recycling of blood cells. Yeah. So again, spleen maybe is a word that you've come across before, but not familiar with what it actually does. Yeah, it's the production and recycling of blood cells, really part of the immune system. Okay, what have we got under spleen? We've got the pancreas. So it's producing digestive enzymes, helping us break stuff down within our system, and releases different hormones and different chemicals into the blood as well. Yeah. And from there, we've got the small and the large intestine, of course, helping what's left of food after your stomach pass through, and the wall of your intestines pulls out what we can use, be it proteins, waters, fiber, whatever it might be. And then, of course, we've got the rectum, which is, of course, the last stop off on the way to leaving the body, I guess you could say. And that is, of course, its job. You know, that is the passage for waste, pretty much, to put it in the nicest way possible. Nobody needs to go into too much detail on a nice little Wednesday morning or coming up Wednesday afternoon, that's for sure, guys. So yeah, a lot there to do with the organs, you know, hopefully one or two little fun facts that you've maybe not come across before. I guess the one that we probably are missing off that list, and it's on the list on the right hand side, potentially one of the most important organs, is the brain, which isn't actually in the torso, it's in the skull, it's in the cranium, getting as much protection as possible, again, like we sort of mentioned earlier on. So yeah, the brain actually uses about a quarter of the oxygen that we breathe in. Actually, 75% of it will go around the body to your muscles and stuff like that. A quarter of the oxygen we breathe in goes straight in the brain for brain function. When we breathe in, it's not actually pure oxygen. Only 21% of what we breathe in is oxygen. A large percentage of it is nitrogen. Yeah, so we've actually got what we breathe in is 21% oxygen. We breathe out 17% oxygen. Yeah, so we only use 4%. The brain uses a quarter of that, like I said. Yeah, so a quarter of it goes straight to the brain for brain function and stuff like that. And that'll about do us for this morning, guys. Actually, we've absolutely blasted through that. Appreciate you sitting through essentially me talking with my little co-host not being on with us this morning. So yeah, that'll about do us. So that actually gives us a good point to sort of wrap up there for the day. So what you should have, and I'll see actually if I can share it. Bear with us 2 seconds, guys, and I'll see if I can get it across. Because what we've got now, we've got a workbook, which is again, it's in the description for the video. The workbook that we need for today's session and for the next couple of sessions is there, and it's called How the Body Works. Yeah, if you don't have it or can't see it, let me know and I'll email that across. And that is going to be what we're going to work through. I'm a little bit of homework for the next week, I guess you could say. So I'll share that across. So what we've got, How the Body Works, and we're going to be doing pages 2 and 3. Yeah, so pages 2 and 3. So we've got, can you match the correct function of the skeleton with its correct definition? So all you would need to do, draw a little line connecting one side to the correct description. Yeah. That was page 2. Activity 2 on page 3. Yeah. Can you match the correct function with the correct definition with the muscular system as well? Yeah. Again, if you need to, we might be able to answer activity 2 a little bit in more detail or a little bit more confidently after next week's session. But again, I can give it a little bit of a go because there was probably enough in today's session to get that one done as well. So, yeah. Can you identify the functions of the muscular system and match the correct function with the correct definition? Yeah. So again, creating movement, protecting organs, pumping blood, and aiding digestion. Yeah. See if we can match that up with the right muscles as well. And then beyond that, that's for the future. So yeah, we've got where are we at now? Back to the PowerPoint. And again, I'll always put one of these sort of finishing up, sort of wrap up the session sort of slides at the end. So again, if you need to come back and find out about what exercises did I need to be doing, when's the next session, you can always just check this video, scroll to the end, and this slide should be on the screen. So yeah, we're completing pages 2 and 3 of the How the Body Works workbook for next week's session. And of course, we will be back next week, exactly the same time, 10 till 12ish, and we'll be looking at how at the heart, how it works, and trying to get an idea of the journey of blood flow through the body as well, because there's a lot of different stop-offs, there's a lot of different parts involved in that, you know. So yeah, that'll be next week. We're looking at the heart and how it works. Pages 2 to 3 of the workbook for next week's session. Like I mentioned earlier on, the link for the fitness video is in the description for today's video. Yeah. So under the video, you'll have a little drop-down arrow, and in there you've got my email. You've got the workbook that we needed for today's session. You've got the workout video, like I say, which is a nice little stretching video today, just get you moving, you know, something that everybody should be able to do, really. Like I say, just loosen up, dust off the old cobwebs if it's been a while. And then, of course, the survey is in there as well, guys. So, yeah, don't forget to do that survey because we need that information. And like I say, it saves you filling in a lot of paperwork as well, but we do need that information in there. So don't forget to do the survey, guys. The link's in the description. Again, if you can't see it or can't find it, let me know and I'll send that across to you, because it is filling in that in, not even 30 seconds. It's a huge help to us, guys. And I think that is about everything. In the link to the description as well, as we mentioned earlier, you've got all the other supplementary learner info that you might need, be it the learner handbook, links to all of our social medias in there as well. And of course, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and share as well. You know, these aren't closed sessions. If you found that something's really important or you feel as though something might be beneficial to somebody else, share it. Pass on my email as well if you want. It might be a course that they're interested in jumping on themselves. So yeah, that'll about do us for today, guys. As always, cheers for jumping on. I know he's not here, but thank you, Ethan, for jumping on first thing and getting us set away this morning. We'll be back next week, guys. Like I say, same time, same day, and we'll get that next session done, and we'll get a little bit of our arts and craft done as well. So just reinforce, I guess, solidify and help us visualize how the like I say, how the heart works and how the blood moves around the body. Other than that, guys, that'll about do us for today. As always, if you've got any questions or anything like that, just drop me an email, get in touch, let me know. And like I say, try out our fitness video, and if you try that one and you want something a little bit different, again, hit up the YouTube Media Savvy channel, because they're all on there as well, guys. So yeah, that'll do us for today, guys. I'll knock that off there, and then yeah, and then I'll let Haytham know so we can knock things off on that end. Yeah, guys. So everybody have a good week. You know, I hope you've enjoyed the first session. You know, we're looking forward to getting back into it next week. We've got something new to sort of sink our teeth into next week. So yeah, by all means, reach out if you need it, guys. Everybody stay safe. Have a good week. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you guys next week if I don't hear from you before. Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot, guys. Catch you later. Bye.